Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development, where we share original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We hope you join us often for practitioner-oriented content around all things related to leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations Podcast? Enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page, and please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI Podcast episode, I talk with Mark Zides about his book, The PACE Process for Early Career Success. Mark Zides, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
John, thanks for having me. Looking forward to our chat.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to be with you today. You're joining us from the Boston area. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about your book, The PACE Process for Early Career Success. I think everyone wants success in their careers and in their lives, but there's a lot of different ways we can go about navigating career development and how we approach our careers generally. And so we're going to unpack that and explore that and some of the insights that you share in your book. As we get started, I wanted to share Mark's bio with everybody. Mark Zides is your go-to guy for all your career advice and business needs. Mark is the founder and CEO of Core Access Consulting, an award-winning custom learning and development, professional and leadership development, and talent management firm. Core Access partners with companies such as Amazon, Thermo Fisher Scientific, Netflix, Nestle, and more to develop innovative, immersive learning solutions for their entire workforce. He is also the founder of Katama, an agency specializing in marketing, sales strategy, and customer success for small to medium-sized businesses, as well as Recipe, a digital marketing agency for rental event equipment companies. You're doing a lot of different cool things. It's a pleasure to have you. Anything else you would like to share with me or my audience by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in?
No, that was a good intro. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, why don't we start then with just talking about the why behind the book. I always like to ask authors, it's a labor of love. You put your heart and soul into these books. Why this book? Why now?
Yeah, great question. So, I've been in the talent management, leadership development, career sort of advisory space for really my whole career. And over the pandemic, certainly everyone shifted to hybrid or at-home learning or at-home, communication, at-home work. So during that time, I saw an opportunity to write a book that I was really itching to write my whole career with respect to that bucket list item, right? It's like, hey, I'd love to try to write a book and around some topic. And what I felt was good timing was that, the way that companies hire and the way that they recruit. And frankly, on the flip side, the way that, the new workforce, the Gen Zers or the millennials go to market or try to find jobs is completely different, completely flipped on its head. So I wrote a book around that on what you need to do to brand yourself, go to market, prepare yourself to find that job, find that right career. And, it was kind of a labor of love for a good year, 14 months, and got published by a great publisher. And here we are.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And like you said, I think this environment for Gen Z and younger millennial workers is a bit different. The playbook's a bit different than previous generations. So I'd love to dive on into that a little bit more now. Tell us a little bit about your process for putting this together and really where you garnered your insights from the younger generations in terms of how they're approaching their careers.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in, like I mentioned, this space for almost, 30 years. So working with large companies, growth companies, mostly HR organizations, talent organizations, learning organizations, where learned a lot from those business leaders on what they were looking for when they wanted to hire somebody. Like, what's the profile, what type of person, and as we, as my company Core Access provided learning and development solutions, onboarding, new hire, we got a lot of interesting data and information on, what was lacking on these new hires, right? It's like what skills were lacking, what behaviors, what, what was their attitude, kind of cultural fit, all that good stuff. And then on the flip side, I'm a parent of 3 Gen Zers and surrounded by all of their friends, a strong network of people. And what I saw in the market, frankly, was, these kids in general, and I call them kids because I got 3 of them on my own, aren't prepared for the workforce, right? They don't have those, general soft skills or communication skills or relationship skills or, really that tenacity or the wherewithal to kind of prepare themselves to try to go get a job after they graduate from college.
It's interesting too, because the younger generation, I think, is approaching even their education differently. So finishing college and moving into the workforce is one segment, but you even have an increasing number of younger individuals who are choosing different options around professional development and preparing for their future careers. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit as well.
Yeah. So it's not one size fits all, right? Like, the economy's changed, we call it the gig economy now. There's a lot of freelancers out there that, really good at certain skills or certain roles or certain things that they are passionate about and like to do. So there's this convergence in the workforce of, companies trying to recruit the best and brightest. You have people that are hanging their own shingle because they're like, I don't want to go into an office every day, to, people now saying after, the pandemic, hey, I want to do something different. I want to do something fun. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to start my own business. So there's a lot of choices, decisions that everyone needs to make, regardless of where they are in their career. But the book was really focused on that younger generation, kind of the Gen Z, millennials who are trying to really not just get into the workforce for the first time, but then, after they've been in a job for, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years, what are some of the things you need to think about to pivot, your career or maybe move in a different direction within the same company?
Yeah. So let's explore that a little bit more then. What would you say are some of the, if you were to list off, say, the top 3 to 5 approaches that someone might use, strategies they might utilize as they're trying to navigate these early career kinds of decisions?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, John, what you and I take for granted are sort of the motherhood and apple pie, sort of foundational skills or things you need to have, which is, you need to have a strong personal brand, personal work ethic, personal approach or focus on trying to find a job. It's just like anything else. It's a job to get a job, as they say. So, the basics are, and the non-starters really are, you got to have a resume, and then your electronic resume or your online resume is LinkedIn. You got to have a great LinkedIn profile. Those have to be aligned. You have to have your personal value prop, in my opinion, like what's your elevator speech on, if someone asks, hey, what do you want to do? Or what are you looking to do? You got to have that, right off the top of your head, explaining to someone, whether it's a friend of a friend or somebody that you're networking with. Speaking of networking. Now's, the time where LinkedIn didn't exist when you and I were getting our first jobs, right? So now it's a different place. It's a different opportunity to kind of build your brand, build your network. You mentioned 5 things. I think a lot of it's also, some of that tough love that I have in my book, which is, that, sort of all the cliches of having tenacity. If you get hit, get up, don't take no for an answer. If one door closes, another one opens, all that stuff where, you just got to be tenacious. You got to be resilient around trying to find that job. And it's hard because the way the system's built is if you apply for jobs, let's say through a company website or through an ATS, you may get blacklisted or you might get ghosted and not responded to. So how do you work through those things? And what are some of the strategies to kind of get around that traditional process of trying to apply on an Indeed or a Career Builder or a Monster or one of those ATS systems? Kind of how do you get right to the hiring manager? And, the book, provides some strategies on how to do that.
Yeah. So let's unpack those. What are some of those strategies would you emphasize with younger people trying to navigate?
a couple of tactics would be, if you really, once you identify and you do research on the company or on the industry you want to work in. So let's say you want to work in life sciences, and let's say you want to go into the office and you don't want a hybrid or remote role. You identify, let's say, some pharmaceutical companies in Boston, for example. And there's some great ones, right? There's Takeda, there's, startups, there's biotechs, there's a lot of them here. And you go to their career pages and you see what job openings are there. I'd go on the company job page and I go on the LinkedIn job page. From there, I try to figure out who the hiring manager is based on that role. And it's a little research, it's a little, art and science to try to figure that out. But what I would do is I'd not only apply for the role on the careers page, but I would also go onto LinkedIn and connect with the person who the hiring manager is there and make that personal connection. Prior to that, I'd figure out, okay, if John Westover might know somebody at Takeda or Biogen, for example, maybe he'd be willing to make an introduction for me because I know him or I know somebody, an alumni or somebody he went to school with. So I think there's a lot of that tactical kind of research that you can do. Another tactic would be to follow the company on LinkedIn, like some posts, figure out kind of who some of the leaders are in that organization and engage in, some topics that you're interested in. And again, it's a process, it's a communication. It's really demonstrating that you're really interested in that role and that company and do it for a few of those. And hopefully, you'll get an opportunity to have an interview.
So that networking is key. And that's a hard thing. I found that, I have 6 children, 4 teenage daughters. My oldest is a freshman in college. And I've noticed, with Gen Z individuals, oftentimes they're not so keen on the idea of verbally communicating. So my daughter she'll text somebody. She doesn't have any real problem doing that. But if I'm like, okay, you need to call this place, you need to do this and this, she really hesitates because it makes her nervous. And I don't think that's unique to her. I think that's something that I think a lot of individuals are struggling with and just learning kind of that skill set around those interactions, which translates into networking. That, most people don't like networking, even if they are good around people and they are good communicators. But if you have that extra kind of barrier, that extra nervousness around those interactions, it's going to be even harder, I think, to do that professional networking proactively. Any suggestions for those listening who might be from this younger generation who are just thinking that just sounds like the worst, like trying to go out and consistently network to prepare for their future opportunities?
Yeah, again, not just your daughter. It's a lot of young professionals, young people nowadays that have that challenge. Or what I'll say in general is these quote unquote kids, young professionals, are digital natives. They all grew up on their phone, right? So they're used to using this thing, and I would guarantee you that they watch videos. Some of them, I don't know if your daughter has done this, but they're on TikTok. And if you're on TikTok, you're producing videos. Now they're funny videos, they're dance videos or other things. But what I would coach anyone on, whether it's my kid or someone else's, I'd say, look, create a video testimonial of who you are, what you do, what you want to do, right? So you're not talking to somebody necessarily. You're, recording yourself. You can practice. Up here, down here. You can do a green screen. You can make it a fun one. And there are some ATS systems out there and some companies, one company I'm advising now and working with is a company called Connect. And, they actually have a really cool asynchronous video, what they call first impression video. And it's a first impression video. Hey, I'm Mark Zides. I just graduated from, this college. I'm really interested in XYZ. The reason why I'm reaching out to you today is because I understand you have a job interview, and it's this. And like, you can do that through video. You don't have to necessarily make the personal connection yet. And you can send that out. So there's some platforms out there that you can use a tool like that, or you can do it on your own. And I think a hiring manager, if they got a 1-minute video on who I am and why I want to work there, it's different, right? It's a lot personal touch versus an email, introducing yourself or going through the ATS system. So that's a little creative. I'd also say, and I know this is a little long-winded, on the flip side, once a young professional is engaged in a conversation, a lot of the statistics that I'm learning is 92% of these young professionals don't send a thank you note. They don't send a thank you email. You and I would never, back in the old day, we'd write one, right? We'd put in the mail. Nowadays, they don't even send an email thank you. I'd push that person, if I were coaching them, to say, why don't you send a video thank you? 30 seconds. Hey, John, great meeting you. Welcome the opportunity to work there. I learned a lot. I'd love to, and that's just different because not everyone's doing it. First of all, 92% aren't even sending a thank you letter or a thank you email. So if you are the one quote unquote student or kid that sends a video thank you, you're going to stand out from the rest. I guarantee it. But I think it's different. It's much different recruiting process than it has been in the past. And you got to stay up with the social platforms to make sure that your jobs are getting highlighted the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great tips, great advice. I think every leader would be wise to listen. I know the playbook's changing. You have to reach out and connect with potential workers in different ways. And that may be uncomfortable, but you have to do it. And from the other side, from the Gen Z worker side, I know it's a little bit uncomfortable. You have to do things maybe that are a little bit out of your comfort zone. Hopefully we can meet in the middle, get good people working for good companies, providing great services to the market, and everyone wins. I think that's what we all hope for. Well, Mark, it has been a pleasure. I know at the time I'm going to have to let you go here in just a minute, but before we wrap things up, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Sure. Thanks again for having me, John. It was enjoyable to chat. So people reach out to me in a couple different ways. LinkedIn's the best way, obviously. Mark Zides on LinkedIn. I have a website, markzides.com. You can purchase my book on markzides.com, through Amazon or any other platform. Download it, whether it's a audiobook, which is what the Gen Zs like to listen to, or I have a lot of podcasts out there, which has hopefully some interesting information like what we're sharing today. And just in general, what I'm doing now is I'm working in the talent management space and in the career building space. And I'm taking what I did with the book, where it was a bestseller last year on Amazon. And now I'm broadening things to hopefully a career coaching practice. So I've built a course. It's coming out next week on Teachable. And, it's going to give students or recent graduates an opportunity to learn more about what it takes to, certainly go to market personally and try to find the right career, try to find the right role. So I'm trying to expand myself, pay it a little bit forward, give back to this community of, Gen Zers to kind of help them be the future work and the next generation of the workforce. So I'm excited to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. It has been a real pleasure. I encourage my audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Mark and his team can do for you. Check out the book, The PACE Process for Early Career Success. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations podcast? Enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page. And please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.